Gabrial Perez Carafa.
That is me.
Is that right? I want to make sure I sound it right.
It's a majestic name.
It is a majestic name. Hi, guys. Welcome to the Creative Block in coordination with Blockchain at USC. I am here today with Gabrial Perez Carafa and Emily Tang. Gabrial is president of the club, and Emily is vice president.
Yes.
Appreciate very much you guys coming out today. This is fun. Emily, tell me about, for people that don't know what the club is, tell me about the club and what you guys are building this semester and working on.
Yeah, so basically we are Blockchain at USC. I think back in 2017, right? It was like Trojan Blockchain Society, but we basically merged a couple years back, and so now we are Blockchain at USC, and this is our I would say it's definitely Southern California's leading blockchain organization, and probably one of the best in the country. We talked with our friends over at Stanford and Berkeley, and they all said that our club is definitely regarded as extremely prestigious in their opinion. And basically we're just a whole hub for students who are interested in anything blockchain, crypto, from regardless of what experience they have, to join and to kind of learn more. Gabe can talk a little bit more about the research that we're doing this semester, but every year we have this thing called the VanEck conference, and so last year we had over 1,500. I think we had a total of 1,800 people officially register for the event, and that was for the VEDA conference. So we work directly with USC Marshall in order to kind of further that blockchain initiative. And so that conference really brings together all of the biggest panels, speakers, and last year we had Kathy Wood, who's our very famous alum who works at ARK Invest, and it's all funded by the VanEck initiative. And so that's something else that's happening again this year, and it's going to be happening in the spring. And we actually just got off of a panel with some of the board of leaders for that. So that's probably going to be one of our biggest events this year. And we have a really great list of speakers. And then I think Gabe can talk a little bit about what the club is doing as a whole in terms of research and our initiatives.
It was because we were all at the conference last year, and you guys know that firsthand because you both have been traveling and going to conferences and getting that feedback, and it felt like even as it was happening, people were like, wow, this is pretty cool. And, so it's really been building up for, what's going to happen in the spring. That momentum is really, growing. I
think people were also definitely impressed by the sheer number of attendees that we had, because I think Southern California, or especially USC, people probably don't think that we're necessarily a blockchain hub, but we actually have so many giga brains here, and we're building a lot of really great stuff. Probably one of our favorite flexes is ETHSign, which raised 12 mil from all three sectors of Sequoia, and that was founded by one of the professors here. And a few other founders were also founders of Blockchain at USC, members on the e-board, etc. And so it's we actually have a really great way to incubate projects and to found things. And I think USC is definitely leading that initiative.
You guys are really good about keeping the environment really positive and inclusive, and having gone to a lot of those meetings, you guys are really open and warm about listening to everybody, getting everybody to beat their own drum and talk about what they want to work on, which is really pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, I think Gabe's leadership has also really helped with that, because he's really pushed for that kind of research-oriented thing, because a lot of what the clubs are doing, Stanford, Berkeley, they're doing a lot of stuff on research, and we got the grant from Delphi Digital, and we've been doing a lot of great stuff. So I'll pass it over to Gabe.
Yeah, Gabe, let's hear about it.
The main focus this year has been structure over everything else. For the first 4 or 5 years of the club's existence, it operated as more or less of an interest group. Every year, more and more students got involved. That just goes with general interest in crypto and the amount of headlines you see year over year. I'm sure that's not specific to USC. You could correlate that with other universities. But eventually it got to this size where it just was too big to foster any sort of sense of community, because there wasn't any structure to the club. There wasn't anything for members to really do. They all just sat in a Discord. About 1,000 kids who may or may not have been bots. We don't really know. But they might as well have been ghosts because they didn't say anything. You would ask questions, and then the bull market comes around, and you start getting people asking about prices and what should I buy? What should I buy? Yeah. So it got really. I didn't like that direction. I think me and Richard and Emily spoke about that a lot going into this year. That we wanted to change things and make it more structure based, and make sure that we could actually retain a community long term. Not just have a few group of kids and then they graduate and it all starts from zero. So this year we made it application based, tried to limit the amount of kids to about 30 out of 80 or so applications. And we're really targeting kids that just are very passionate about the space. They've been in it. They're motivated more so by their professional careers, not chasing after money. Although, some students have done fairly well for themselves, but it's not because they chase money. It's because they build good products and they understand what users want and they understand where the space is going and where it is today. And that's what really matters. So right now we have about 30 kids, a good mixture of engineer, theoretical, and business, marketing, economics, psychology, political science, whatever it is. So I think we make a good makeup of students that can go after really good research opportunities with like venture capital firms, which we've done a number of already, including a few with Superscript for decentralized social media, user-facing reports. And then obviously we're building out our governance team, spearheaded by Chase and David, who are insane. Those guys are crazy. They manage our 1 million OP token delegations from A16Z, and they're, those two have done it themselves the past 18 months. Now they're getting a new team. They're growing it out, but I mean they scaled it to number 2 most active delegation group in the world. Wow. So those kids, they're the real MVP.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have them on at some point too and dive into details because I think that'd be a great conversation. Despite the market, what's really encouraging is that, there are people in the room that are just building. They're excited about the technology. They're excited about the potential of the technology. Is there anything that you're hearing from them, that you think is, going to be beneficial to the club, to the market in general, like fresh ideas coming out from that level?
Yeah, so we actually had that question at the BOL thing that we just came from. Like, basically, one of the audience members was just asking, like, what's going on now? Like, our market's dead, etc. And, like, I think the overall thesis is during the bear market, like, people may think, oh, that means that crypto's not doing well. We should all be pessimistic. But if anything, like, if we think about the bull and how many, like, quite frankly, useless projects came out, and they were just like giga shills and had no real thesis. This is the time for real builders to huddle down and come up with products. And I think we're definitely seeing a lot of that. Like, I know that this year, because we made the club a little more exclusive, we have some really great brains within the club. They're doing a lot of cool stuff with like cybersecurity, for example. And I think it just overall is actually the most optimal time to get into crypto, because it's always like the people who are left standing, those are the ones who really believe, and that's how the best products are going to come out. Like I think James Healy, who's one of the advisors for VanEck, he was basically talking about how that's actually like how DeFi started in the first place, like a few years back. And I think overall the sentiment is definitely strong for builders, which is very positive.
Yeah it's kind of exciting.
I think crypto has this complicated subject where it's kind of over the past 5 years or so promised so much and delivered so little. You were promised, it's like we were promised flying cars and all we got was electric cars. So I think at moments like these, sure, a lot of people who are not involved say crypto's dead, nobody really cares, and maybe they're right, but what matters going forward is that the infrastructure and the ideas continue to get better and better. And I remember listening to this lecture that Oppenheimer gave at Princeton in 1961, and he was basically talking about how advancements in science and technology, nobody really cares because it's always limited to such a small subset of very intelligent people who have dedicated their entire lives to that. He says the only thing that can change the world is the most primitive outcome, the thing that can be understood by the masses. So I don't think crypto has hit that moment yet. In DeFi, people caught on because it was like, here's this app on the internet, I put money in, I get paid 2x my money. and that was easy to understand. But obviously, the economic game theory of that will never last more than it did. So, I think now it's just a lot of people who are very dedicated to what crypto might become and very passionate about fulfilling those promises. That's mainly what the group looks like, I'd say.
That's exciting. And what about, let's hear more about like what the event might look like next year.
The conference?
Yeah.
So
because there's a lot of renewed interest in it since you guys had success with it last year.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think last year it was a collaboration event between Marshall, Blockchain USC, and then the VanEck Foundation. And I think this year that relationship is only getting stronger.
Mm-hmm.
We now have a direct point of contact with VanEck, Eric Chung, the guy, great guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think these streamlined conversations between all these parties are just getting better and better. We're starting to silo our roles a lot better, because last year it was more of like a, what do we really have to focus on? Like there was a group of 8 kids on eBoard and they're having to do event planning. Well, the first day they're paying some people hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. And we were meeting at we called it the Grindhouse, but it was really just our friend Nico's apartment. And we would go there like every night a month before the conference and try to make sure this thing didn't blow up.
Yeah.
So, and it was a lot of fun. It's a lot of thrill, but I'm glad that more collaboration is happening now with Marshall and VanEck, so that a lot of the nuances and small details of event planning can be passed off, and we can focus on speaker topics, getting good speakers, and what really matters.
Yeah. In terms of I know you asked a little bit about the format. I think that we can probably see something similar to what we did last year, where we basically had a bunch of panelists come. These are renowned leaders in the space, and probably just some Q&A questions, time for the audience to ask questions. So we'll probably have it in that kind of setting, and it's probably going to span over the course of 2 days. So it'll be similar to the format of last year.
Yeah. And there's a lot on YouTube, and I'll put in the show notes too some of those talks, because I know those can be viewed. And it was a lot of fun to be there and watch all that play out. And it's a lot of work to put on an event. That's why there are professionals that just do that. It was really impressive to watch what you guys did, because it's kind of a big reach, to put something out like that.
I think we're just a lot better organized this year, and it definitely has to do with Veda, because I think last year our connection with them was a little more on the blurry lines, but this year they took a very direct action to help us, and so I can anticipate the conference is going to be huge, and there's probably going to be a bigger turnout this year than last year, which is really exciting.
Yeah. And so we were talking a little bit before the mics came on. There was a really great conversation, so we were talking a little bit about traditional companies either resisting or being curious about, Web3 and what their value is, right?
Yeah.
And so, there are some industries that are resistant, like the game environment is still pretty resistant, right?
I would say it's definitely less, I think it's less resistant than film. Well, okay, so basically the game narrative is I don't know if people saw what happened with Dr. Disrespect, who's the YouTuber. He had his own game and everyone hated it. It's there's a difference between making a game and making a game blockchain because it's trendy versus making a blockchain based game, period, for the blockchain. Because I think everyone's trying to catch on the hype train of because it's trendy, but let's face it, if you're trying to build a AAA game, it's gonna take years to push out.
Sure.
And quite frankly, I think a lot of gaming companies are over promising stuff, because they'll be oh, we're gonna have incredible graphics, NFTs, income, generous. But that's just not possible and not feasible. And I think that's why a lot of gamers are disappointed, because I think in the entertainment space, at least in gaming, people are trying to combine too much at once. And so there's a reason why games like Axie Infinity have really, part of my French, shitty graphics, because the point isn't necessarily about the game itself. It's about being able to battle, make income and stuff like that.
Community.
Yeah, but we were actually talking earlier about film, and how well, because the way that I see it, I definitely am biased, but I was just thinking it seems especially with RWAs, it seems I feel there should be no pushback when it comes to effectively being able to tokenize something like a really famous film and everyone being able to own it, right? Because then you wouldn't have to buy like the whole thing for like hundreds of millions of dollars. But that also plays into what Gabe was saying earlier about IP. And yeah.
Because you could imagine even like the Swifties, right?
Yeah.
They're already wearing the bracelets. They're buying all the T-shirts. They're already in collectibles as support of that. And that's just another type of collectible, right?
Yeah.
You can see that actually isn't something that can get lost or destroyed, you know what I mean? And can be transferred over time, you know. I don't think she's going away anytime soon. So
yes.
the potential of, you know, those collectibles keeping value or even having smart contracts attached. Like if the tickets were NFTs and there were smart contracts and some of them you could have a meet and greet for 30 minutes or something. You know what I mean? There's so many different ways you could potentially go with that would potentially translate into like new media or film.
Yes.
Well, I understand Taylor Swift is not signed to any third-party record, right? She has her own record.
I think she has her own, yeah. She owns it. She's an owner.
So, I mean, I think that's another example of somebody just having a monopoly over their own IP.
Yeah.
I know her team's incredible. Like the business people that work alongside her are some of the smartest people in the music industry.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I personally, this problem has definitely potential for the future. Certain things, I don't think tokenizing collectibles would make sense in her opinion. I guess I'll take the other side of the argument there, just because she already has a monopoly over her IP. It just increases friction. Then you have to have these people on board to like a technology they don't really care about. They just want to listen to her music. It's just like it goes back to the Oppenheimer thing. Right. The primitive outcome is always the most fascinating, and this is not a primitive outcome.
Right.
This is like, let me introduce 20 steps so you can do what used to take one step.
Yeah.
So that actually really reminds me on the subject of Taylor Swift. I was reading this really interesting article the other day, and basically, like, I forgot, like, a couple months ago, everyone was, like, hailing Taylor Swift, and they were like, now get me wrong, I actually really like Taylor Swift songs, so I'm not, like, a hater. But, like, it was interesting nonetheless that, like, people were like, oh, you know, she's so educated in crypto, and she actually asked SBF, like, just because the FTX collapse is, like, so trendy nowadays, and she actually asked, like someone from FTX who basically wanted to like sign a deal with her, and she was like, oh, but is a crypto classified as a security? So actually I read an article that totally was like, that wasn't Taylor Swift who asked that. And also like a bunch of celebrities who got paid, like Tom Brady was like paid 30 million. I forgot the other celebrity, but they were paid 18 million to sign it like in FTX equity.
All those guys that were on the Super Bowl ads.
You know, actually they wanted to do a deal with Taylor Swift, and actually they were gonna do it, but Taylor Swift was charging too much because she wanted 100 million. And basically they were like, no. So actually it was Sam who called off the deal, and actually the Taylor Swift team was really disappointed. But I guess the point that I'm saying is that like the thing that's making the headlines now is not like the actual super cool projects that are being built, but of course it's like the FTX collapse. And I think that if there's one thing that probably should be a big takeaway, it's that like there's a very big difference between the scammers who use the tech to complete their scams versus the tech itself. And I think that's the biggest distinction that people can't make, like, because like it makes sense, right? Like if you're like not familiar with the crypto space and all you're hearing is it's scams, they lost billions of dollars, like of course it's scary.
Of course.
But the narrative is completely focusing on the scams as a result of crypto as opposed to the crypto tech itself. Because if you actually look at the tremendous things that blockchain can accomplish, it's really inspirational, and it's not really something to be feared. So there's always that distinction about people using it for nefarious means versus the actual tech itself. So I think that's also a misconception that people have. That
absolutely. And you know, news is a business, and it sells the news that's going to get seen, and the FTX collapse is, you know, obviously very juicy and salacious, you know, on so many levels. My very first episode on this format was with you talking about FTX, you know, when he was first getting in trouble, because I was like, what the fuck's happening here? You know, I just didn't understand it, you know, and unfortunately we understand it very well now. But you know, there's just, and this comes back to like, you know, the students in the clubs and people building content. None of that's getting headlines, even though it potentially has a lot of value going forward. And that's just going to take more and more, and people consistently working and putting it out there, you know, until that needle moves. But I think we might be a ways away from that, because, you know, the everyday person we're still not even getting a concept of what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the USC community has some of the strongest like crypto minds. Like there are so many people here, like whether it be Viterbi or Marshall, that like are building really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like just the other day, Gabe and I were talking to the two girls who basically founded SC Tickets, which is basically
right.
a
I saw
ticketing,
them in the press. Yeah,
a ticketing scheme
Lena
that was
and Ozrin.
that's running on Polygon to basically fuel sustainability as opposed to traditional like ways of selling tickets. So that was really cool. Like things are definitely being built at SC.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not like getting out in the headlines enough.
Not yet, but it will.
Yeah.
It will. So what else? Anything else you guys want to talk about or is of interest or, you know, things happening in the club that, you know, you think people should know? Crickets.
We're doing podcasts now.
We are doing podcasts. You're going to see a lot more of these, which is really kind of fun, you know?
Yeah.
And we're going to also, because you guys are really good about getting really important players in this space to come in and physically speak, and we're going to be capturing more of that to share. And, you know, it's pretty impressive what you guys have built so far. So hats off.
Trying our best.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Of course, we couldn't do that without Vin.
Stop.
Steven Spielberg, Blockchain USC.
Yes.
I'm very grateful for you guys. My hope is that, you know, as we, you know, we talked about this too. Part of what I learn and what we gain here, I'm hoping to bring more of that to the cinema school because I think there is, you know, can be a value for them. I don't think they see it yet. And, you know, part of my challenge is to have the verbiage so that it's clear to them, at least the possibility is clear, and it's just not, we could do this and we can do that. You know, you could do that in any industry. So it's just really a matter, you know, Decentralized Pictures, I did an interview with them at the beginning of the year, but they're really focused on projects coming off the ground, you know, projects that are in development. Their Web3 space is meant to get those projects moving forward. But you know, for writers, producers, cinematographers, I think there's still something there, you know, that I think will reveal itself at some point too. So
yeah,
we'll see.
I do want to say I just have like tremendous respect for the SCA program and then the students that are also like majors within SCA.
Yeah.
So talented. Like it's crazy.
It's
like,
crazy.
I have always been a film fan myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an economics, computer programming dominion, like very theoretical, non-creative. But some of the people I meet are just incredible.
They're incredible. And it's really infectious because, you know, having day-to-day relationships with, you know, students that are making films is just like, I'm kind of always in awe because it's pretty amazing to watch that kind of imagination, you know?
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. One last thing. What do you guys, let's just go back and forth. What are you working on outside? What are you developing that you could talk about?
Yeah, so basically we are advising on different projects right now, and currently like there's definitely bear market sentiment, so I would say like the quality of projects that we're filtering in are like, they're not as interesting. Like they definitely are tackling real world problems, but they're not as interesting as when it was during the bull market when we could filter out through more projects. But predominantly we're focusing on, I would say, games, especially in the international community. So we're doing a lot of work with South Korea and Japan and those gaming industries, because a lot of them are building out really cool games that enable people to make passive income, even if they're not necessarily manual playing the game. More like they could just like kind of be sitting idle and generating kinds of revenue, which I think is something really cool because it's definitely something that the blockchain enables that couldn't be done without blockchain.
Wow.
That's probably the most interesting thing we're working with at the moment.
And how far away is that out?
So they're actually currently already in development, and I would say like some of them have already been released.
Oh, wow.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah. Now we're just going into the user testing phase.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What about you, Gabe?
I'm working at Polymer Labs. Yeah, I mean, we're an early startup. Closed our Series A with Blockchain Capital. We're basically working on decentralized interoperability infrastructure. It's a bit of a technical product, but we're trying to ensure that two chains can communicate with each other, even if they have different consensus mechanisms in a decentralized way. So you'd be assuming no other trust assumptions beyond the individual validator sets of those chains. And we'd be doing that through what we believe is a standardized interoperability protocol, which is IBC. And to communicate those message packets, we can leverage zero knowledge technology and create ZK IBC products. But yeah, people will be hearing about us.
Fun.
soon,
That's
for sure.
exciting.
For sure.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, guys, thank you very much for your time today. I'm really excited we could do this, and hopefully we'll do a lot more of them.
Yes.
And I'll put down any relevant links and social and all that in the show notes so people can follow you guys. And
Thank you for having us.
thank you very much. I'm glad we put this
Not
together.
like Vince.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
All right. See ya.